Hello, everybody, and welcome back to HavoKast. Today, we are going to be ranking the Alien and Predator movies. It's a long-standing franchise. Well, two different franchises, I suppose, that crossed over. But I really enjoy these movies. I think there's a lot of iconic moments. There's a lot of great films, and then some not so great ones. Personal preference and nostalgia and the feeling you get from the movies obviously weighs into this a lot. As my own personal ranking, and I would love to hear yours. I'd love to hear what you guys think of these movies. And I want to shout out and thank Booya for the suggestion as well. There's a few different suggestions we're going to take and use. And anybody feel free to suggest, any rankings, discussion topics, whatever, on, any of the Twitch channels or the YouTube channels I do. I am always happy to take suggestions, discuss, and see what you guys have going on too. I don't think there's any real right or wrong answer in general also with any of these rankings or discussion topics. I think it's just, what you're in the mood for, what you enjoy, and just like there's no real wrong genre of music to listen to. It's kind of the same with the movies as well. There's probably something in here for everybody, but definitely in my opinion there are better ones and worse ones. But yeah, so we're gonna rank all 13 of these. I want to thank you all for being here, and please let me know what you think in the comments as well. But yeah, we'll get into this one, starting with number 13. At number 13, we have The Predator. Probably not a huge surprise here. I think there's a little bit of argument for what goes at the bottom if you were doing this tier list. And I'm sorry to anybody who's a fan of this movie, but man, I cannot stand this one. This movie was, even on a rewatch, when I knew what was going to happen, painful to get through. I think something I found about watching this movie again, I watched all these through recently just to do this list, and something that I kind of took away from this movie is that it makes the Alien vs. Predator movies look like they have more of a point. It almost makes them look better. And those movies are just action for the sake of action. It's just, hey, that's my favorite thing, and this is also my favorite thing, and they're together now. Sick. This movie was like, hey, we're going to try to reboot the franchise, but we're going to do it in a way that does not make as much sense, is not as close to home. It doesn't hit as close to home. And the plot and direction were just all over the place. The cast, I like a lot of these actors, and good on them for doing what they did in their movie, but it just seemed like, hey, these are names that people know these days, so let's put them in the movie, which is, honestly, that's kind of what we did in a few of these movies, really. However, it worked a little better because it kind of fit more. It kind of fit the style of the movie more. This one, it was just, I felt like they were just collecting names that people knew, and we were like, hey, we can get them. We can get them for fairly cheap. Let's get them in this movie. And I'm not saying the actors, anything negative about them. I mean, they're great actors. It just felt like they had a tough time fitting them into their roles, and it felt like an even tougher time with the director getting people to really work together and play off it. I mean, you can see it in other movie franchises. If you don't have a strong director, but you have a strong cast or great actors, or just, nothing just kind of fits or works together, you can tell the wheels kind of fall off of the production. This one, I don't know. It was, for a reboot for a franchise, it was pretty tough. Like I say, it doesn't really have much of an interesting story or plot for me. There's a lot of just go with it. And then, there's a sense of hopelessness too, that I liked about some of the earlier movies in these franchises. You had a sense of hopelessness, but it was kind of rectified in a meaningful way at the end, whereas this one, it just doesn't. I don't know. It was one of the only ones that I was just not looking forward to watching, and man, I don't know. You can always take something good away from a lot of these movies in this franchise. Whether you like them or not, there's always some pieces you can be like, okay, that's cool. I see that. Not this one, though. I think there might have been a couple of good scenes. A couple of times where I was like, okay, I get it, but overall, it is just not fun to watch. And if you look at the top 4 movies or whatever in this ranking, when we get to them, you can see they're kind of interchangeable based on mood or feeling or nostalgia or whatever. This one, it's not like, okay, 13 and then a step up to 12. It's like 13 is way, way down here. And then the next huge step up is to 12. And then after that, there's a huge step up to the rest of the movies. But yeah, 13 and 12 right now are going to be pretty low. And it's not like, a linear low. It's like way, way down. But yeah, I'm sorry again if you like this movie. I just cannot get on board with it. Um, but we will move on to number 12. At number 12, to no one's surprise, we have Alien vs. Predator Requiem. That's just another one. And like I said before, 13 and 12 are going to be way, way lower than the next few. But man, this movie is just so pointless. It is so bad. Um, I don't feel attached to the characters. I don't care what happens. There's a couple of good moments here or there, but overall, it felt like a weird horror slasher film. It's almost like if they took like a Jason movie or something and then skinned it as a Alien versus Predator movie. Which again, I don't even know why they call it Alien versus Predator. The whole thing is weird. In this movie, we're in a small town, and I do not feel like it hits close to home at all. I do not feel anything in the town. I like to watch some of the character movements through this and the struggle they go through. Like, I think it's a little interesting, but I don't know. Overall, it did not make any sense. It felt very strange to even say this was an Alien versus Predator movie and nothing more than a cash grab, fanfare kind of thing. I like how they tried to integrate in some of like the like fanfare like lore kind of stuff, but it works or it doesn't, and this one it doesn't. Not a ton to say about this other than I just don't I don't really resonate with this one. I don't even find, especially with the original Alien versus Predator, it feels so pointless in this franchise. I have it above the Predator because I think the Predator wanted to do something serious, wanted to reboot the franchise, and it was not marketed quite like it was such an obvious cash grab. And then it just fell so flat and was kind of ridiculous from the get-go. Requiem, it was like you kind of knew what you were getting into. It's like watching another Fast and Furious movie. You're just going to go in there, you're going to turn your brain off and enjoy it. Although I would turn my brain off and not really enjoy this one. No reason to revisit it for me. But yeah, you kind of knew what you were getting going into it, and I had to watch it. I felt the need to check it out, and that's about all that is. But yeah, that's Alien vs. Predator Requiem for me, number 12 out of 13. Moving on to number 11. Alien Covenant is a major letdown for me. I know it's a pretty big step up from Alien vs. Predator Requiem, but man, Alien Covenant just feels like a movie that was there to tie up loose ends. Definitely some fanfare kind of moments in there. I don't know why I went into this one thinking it would be like a description of the different like kinds of aliens, or like we would see more of the backstory behind like how they became a thing and all this. It just felt more like a personal struggle and a tale on like morality and stuff like that. And I don't know. I feel like where Prometheus and Alien Covenant kind of went wrong is we were not as invested on the backstory as we were invested in the struggle of like the characters in there, which is fine and works in some instances. But I wanted to see them more for like, how did all of this start? What's the deal with the corporation? What's the deal with the actual, how do they become what they are? Where's the tie-ins that I was looking for? Not these just random tales, that kind of tie in and kind of give you the backstory. All we're left with, in my opinion, is a pretty not as convoluted plot as it was before, but I expected more. Acting is kind of a mixed bag in here. I think it's a little up and down. There's great acting and tough acting. But I was just disappointed more than anything. I loved the Alien franchise. I mean, I still do, but I really loved like the earlier movies, and I thought, wow, we're gonna get some backstory. We're gonna see how all this started. We're gonna see how this began, and I think what they meant to do was run this franchise a little like it. I guess it was kind of a soft reboot, but also like prequels in a way. And usually prequels are not super well received because it's kind of like, oh, now we're just tying up all these loose ends conveniently. But this was such an open, like, the mystery of it was out there. and you can kind of go wherever. And I just think it falls so flat. However, I will say, as a movie, it's a well shot, decent looking movie that you can kind of follow and is not the worst to watch. It's number 11 because I think everything above it is obviously a lot better, but also I think it's better for what they do. This one, it's kind of like, it's just, it's not, it doesn't serve its purpose the way I was hoping it would serve its purpose. And so I never even really have to go back to it. Because even watching Prometheus, they were kind of setting up the next one. And probably the next few after that. But I think it felt like that's kind of where it began and people wanted it to end, I don't know. I like the movie. Oh, it's okay, but it's not one that I really enjoy revisiting. However, like I say, it's better than 12 and 13. The Predator and Requiem are just pretty tough to watch in general. This one, it's not tough to watch. It just feels kind of pointless. But as harsh as that may sound, I think I feel comfortable putting it at 11. We will move on to number 10 now. And at number 10, we have Alien versus Predator. So I know what you're probably thinking. If you want to talk about a movie that has no point, we're talking about Alien versus Predator. I get it. But it was fun to watch. This movie, at least, you can just kind of sit there and watch action for the sake of action and enjoy it. It was not as big a cash grab as the other movies that I listed below were. Like Requiem was just the cash grab of a cash grab movie. It was just no point at all. They shouldn't have even made it, in my opinion, but whatever. This one, however, it's kind of fun. It's like, there's lore behind it. There was, I don't think it was really well executed or well done, but I think, for the sake of the movie itself, it was fun to watch. It was easy to watch. There were some great bits in it, some really cool bits. You don't really get super invested. I actually like the ending. I think it actually does a good job of kind of like diving into more of the respect, like backstory, like, tribal kind of thing they have going with the predators and, the humans working together and whatnot. It seemed at first kind of like, oh, that's stupid and cheesy or whatnot. But then, you kind of think about it and you're like, I don't know, this race of the predator, the Yautja, this race is like very, they're a hunting species, they hunt for trophies. They have a lot of respect and admiration for the hunt and the game and all that. And like, if you save their own or whatever, and you're, invited into like, I don't know, their tribe or to be, spared by them, like it does make sense. Like, let's be honest, it does make sense. So that ending never really bothered me. Some people were just like, yeah, they should have just killed all of them. It's like, well, no, why? It doesn't make any sense, So I think that actually was kind of a good way to wrap it up. I think, like I say, the movie's stupid. It's just turn your brain off and just enjoy the action. At number 10, I think we are just below the like good movies section of this list. But way above, in my opinion, Alien Covenant, and then way, way above, the Predator and Alien vs. Predator Requiem. I still think, like I say, it's a very one-dimensional movie, but, there's some good bits in it here and there. And nothing more, nothing less to say, some good callbacks, some fanfare, some fun. But, yeah, I feel comfortable putting it at number 10, like a healthy number 10, But that being said, we are going to move on to what I think is better movies, like good movies, like ones that I kind of want to watch, starting with number 9. At number 9, we have Prometheus. Now, Prometheus was pretty interesting and mysterious when it first came out. I saw the movie, and you don't even really know it's an alien movie when you look at like the trailer and whatnot. So it actually was pretty interesting diving into the lore, the backstory, and to have this just kind of develop around us. I like that. I like the build-up. I like that it was more of a, a psychological kind of like follow along, like think about this movie kind of thing. it wasn't like too arty for the sake of art, if you know what I mean. So it wasn't like horrible. It was fun to watch, but I use the term fun lightly. It was a good watch. I like it. I think it leaves so much to be desired. I think it really didn't do a great job of giving you a couple like straight paths to take for this ride. I think it was just kind of like all over the place and left us with probably more questions than we had answers. But like I say before, I think it was to build more of like a franchise, like lineage, soft reboot kind of thing here. And I don't think a lot of people received it super well. So Alien Covenant just kind of came in to just, burn off the ends and wrap them all up. But yeah, Prometheus, it was interesting. I mean, I think it was not the origin story that we all wanted. I think it was not really where we wanted this to be or start. But it was kind of like, it was kind of good to have something, And I like, as a movie, I like it. I think Ridley Scott coming back for this one really also deflated a lot of people when it came to like the execution of it, because when you go to Alien, it's such a masterful movie. It's just so good at everything it does. And then you go to like Prometheus and you think, oh yeah, we got the Godfather Alien movies back in here, And it didn't feel like that. It felt like a couple things were just kind of shoehorned in to make it all work. It doesn't have the same atmosphere that like the original Alien movie had. You don't feel as invested. There's a crew, and it just doesn't feel like a believable, cohesive crew the way the other one did. So, like I said, it's a good movie. It's good to watch. It is interesting. I don't ever need to go back to it, but as a movie, I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a great movie, like a lot of these up on the list are. But I really am not a huge fan of just where they took the origin story of all of this, And I think there's still so much more that we need to dive into and figure out and hear from this franchise, and I just don't know if we're ever going to get it because of this one. But yeah, that's my number 9, and I think I feel pretty comfortable with it there. I know some of you are wondering where Alien Resurrection is, and we're getting to it, I promise. Like I say, this is my list. This is very, very subjective. I'm just going to foreshadow this a little bit. Yeah, we're getting there, don't worry. But yeah, moving on to number 8 in the franchise. Alien 3 is one that is actually kind of making a comeback recently, and I'm happy because as a movie, it's pretty awesome. It's a pretty good movie. It's an interesting, unique tale. I love that Alien 3 was so different than the first two movies, because the first two movies you kind of like, you follow along with the sensible, like, okay, this goes to this point and this point goes to this point. It makes sense. This one, it's different. And I think that's why a lot of people did not like it at first, is because it is very different and it is very out there. I like when things, whether it's music or movies or whatever, in a certain franchise or band or genre or whatever, keep a little bit of that same flair. So like it has that Alien style. It has, hey, we're over here and we need to get somewhere, but we can't get somewhere, like almost like that kind of hopeless feeling, but in a more world building kind of way. But also does different things. So you don't get, the same thing over and over again. I like music for that same reason. Like, a band can have an album come out, it's awesome, and then they move on to their next album, and it's the same style, same kind of feel, but maybe with a different tone, or maybe the band takes like their style, their feel, and moves it in a different direction. So you have that, that, hey, this is my favorite band, but also they're doing something a little different. So I never get so stuck in my ways listening to songs. The band, is able to like make different things and do different things. Same with this movie. Like it's not stuck in its ways where you can kind of take it in different directions. And, it just doesn't feel like the same thing over and over again. But it also has like those reminders, those friendly, familiar feels of the Alien franchise. All the good stuff out of the way. I think that it is a really, really hopeless and depressing feeling movie, and that always makes me very sad watching it. Um, they do a good job of putting you in the mindset of like, God, what if I was in this situation? What would I do? And it just feels so hopeless. And at the end of movies, you usually feel like, okay, a very good conclusion. It feels like we wrapped that up in a meaningful way, and we are where we want to be. This one, it's like you feel like you're getting rescued, and then that also is taken out of you. The rug is just removed from your feet, and you're like, well, it's like a impactful, meaningful ending, but it's so sad, and it kind of sucks, but it's also kind of like, man, that's kind of it's kind of a good movie. It takes you on a ride, and you feel that ride. The CGI is just horrible. If you can even, it's the man, that runner alien is just so tough to look at. There's a lot of stuff in there that's tough to look at, and I think that like gloomy, like filter they have over the movie the whole time is also kind of tough to look at. Like I say, props on them for trying new things, and the franchise moving in a different direction. Right from the beginning though, your favorite characters from the previous movie are killed off, and then it's just, I don't know, like I say, it's just so depressing and so hopeless throughout the whole thing. Plus you're on a prison like moon or planet or whatever it is, and that alone is also just really sad and tough to deal with, because it's just, they're just there. Some of the worst criminals in the universe are just there on a planet, just mining and working their life away. And as much as you don't want to feel for criminals and stuff, you do feel that environment is just tough to live in. And it's just not something super, I don't know, fun and exciting. The action scenes are great. I think they do a good job of really bringing that that life or death situation, that struggle, to the screen. But yeah, it's just, I think I'm glad that it is where it is, and I'm glad that people are kind of coming around to it. But it's a tough act to follow. Usually, the original movie's awesome. The second movie's probably not as good, and the third movie's like terrible. But nah, this one, this franchise, it kind of did its thing. Like I say, it's not anywhere near the top, but it's still a good movie in my opinion. It's one that I don't mind revisiting. I don't seek it out often, but I don't mind revisiting it. And that being said, we will move on to number 7. Now, Predators is weird because Predators feels like the Predator, but it feels like the better version of that in every single way. It's a little different than the first 2 Predator movies, as far as like plot, storyline, location, that kind of thing, but without it being too radically different overall. I like the cast. I like I think this is the opposite in every way of the Predator in the casting and director. Where I think that the direction was good enough to get the most out of the cast, the way they work together. I think the movie's pretty, it's like overrated in some parts and then underrated in some parts. I think was it necessary? Probably not as a movie. I think it was, good enough. It's fun to watch. It's interesting. If you're in the mood for it, it's a great movie to watch. Good action, good sequences in there. But I think overall it's just a fine movie. It's right in the middle, and it deserves to be right in the middle. I think it's more fun for me to watch than Alien 3, which is why I have it higher than Alien 3. I think as a movie, Alien 3 is probably a little better than Predators, but I do enjoy watching Predators a bit more. And I think in the grand scheme of like the lore and the lineage and all that, I think that's why it kind of ended there before the reboot, because it was just kind of like, what are we doing with this franchise at this point? It didn't make a ton of sense to really have it. It just didn't make a ton of sense in general. Kind of a movie just to make a movie. Kind of like, hey, let's make this classic a modern feeling, version of that movie. And it's just kind of, I don't know. I like it a lot, but I'm not sure if I know why I like it. I think it's it's kind of like what Alien versus Predator probably should have been. You know, where it doesn't have to really take you far, far out of, you know, the realm of possibility in this world where Alien versus Predator kind of did. But it's a movie you just kind of have to go with, you know. It's a movie you just got to turn off, plug in, and you know, be good to go with, because it's one that I'm interested in the whole way I watch through, and I'm not necessarily sure why, but it, you know, if I'm sitting there and I'm not looking away for a couple of minutes, then it's doing something right, you know. So Predators for me is at 7. It's I feel pretty comfortable with it there, and I think after this part, um, there's a couple of movies that are probably going to be controversial where they are, but for me personally, I think they're good movies and fun movies. And then above those, we're going to get into like the god tier movies in this franchise. So yeah, that's my number 7, Predators. I am going to move on to number 6 now. And coming in at number 6, we have Prey. Now, Prey is, I believe, a Hulu like original movie. Um, I saw it on Hulu at least, and I think it's a Hulu original. Well, either way, um, this movie I actually thought was not that bad, and I was very nervous going into it. There was a couple of reasons to be very nervous about watching this movie. Um, and it was just one of those, like, is this one of those modern, you know, we got to reboot this and make it like, you know, super, I don't know, like inclusive and up to date for the sake of making it inclusive. Like, I have no problem with inclusivity. I have no problem with, you know, just casting a cast that belongs in a movie. Like, if you're a good actor, you know, you belong to be in the movie. If it makes sense in the plot of the movie, like, put it in by all means. I'm fine with that. So I saw the plot, I saw the premise, I saw where it was set, and I was like, oh God, what are we doing here? Like, are we just making a movie to make a movie? I don't know what this is supposed to be. And I watched it, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I thought it was cool that I think there's so many unique, like, underlying things in this movie. Now, I don't know how it is really perceived in the public. I think people are kind of like, hey, I like it, or hey, I don't like it. I don't think there's like an outcry of people that absolutely hate this movie or love this movie. But for me personally, I liked the characters. I liked that it was like an indigenous tribe, you know, that was worked into the. I don't think it was really. I mean, it's a Predator movie, so again, it wasn't like historically accurate. I know there was a lot of things location wise that made no sense to the tribe, but I like seeing indigenous peoples in a movie, and I like seeing them not just there to be there, but like it made sense. So I thought that was pretty surprising in a great way. It's definitely not, in my opinion, a bad movie. I actually really like this movie. I thought it was cool. I thought it was funny, too, that some of the detractors of this movie were saying, oh, I didn't believe that the main characters could, you know, do this or that or whatever. You know, it seemed almost superhuman what they were doing in here. And I'm like, right, but even if they did, it's a Predator movie, you know? Like, I'm not expecting it to be completely anatomically correct to what a human is capable of or whatever. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, you just kind of got to go with these movies, all of them, you know? I mean, it's a Predator movie. I understand where they're coming from, where it's like, hey, we want we want it to be like an actual human. We want it to be somebody that we identify with or like sympathize with, because what if we were in that situation? It kind of transports you there. And it's like, yeah, I get that. I understand you want to like relate to the main characters, but on that same level, I think it's cool that the main characters also kind of embody some of that, you know, I want to say camaraderie that like the Predators have on their end. So it's almost like two different worlds coming together. And you know how Predators are like a tribal pack. They're very, you know, honorable with each other, and you know, there's a lot of like ranking system and what you know, it's a very tribalistic kind of thing. So you get to this indigenous tribe here, and it's the same deal. You know, it's obviously there's a different, you know, morality structure and code and everything like that. And the indigenous tribe that we are, you know, following the whole time are definitely people that are represented in, a good nature and a good light here. Not like predators, which are just killing machines. But I think there's this like parallel where there's like almost an understanding. Not that they get along or anything, obviously, but there's just this understanding between the two of them, and that's why they're hunting. This tribe, the predators are, and everything like that. It's just, I don't know. I got a little more from it than I think a lot of people got, and maybe that's just me, looking at it through those rose tinted glasses or whatever. But I don't know. I kind of liked it. I kind of enjoyed it, and I thought it was just cool to see representation done in a way that made sense and didn't just feel like we were, just making it to make it. You know what I mean? So I actually really was pleasantly surprised. I like this movie a lot. I think it's very good. Arguably better than the next one on this list. So we'll jump into number 5. And at number 5, we have Alien Resurrection. And I know you all were waiting for this one. You were like, where the hell is this horrible, horrible movie in this franchise? Like I say, this is a very personal ranking. This is not on how good the films are. This is just how much I enjoy watching them. Prey was a good movie. Like, as a movie, I think it was a good movie. I think it was well shot. I think it was well directed. I think it was fun to watch, and I think it was really cool. Alien Resurrection, I think, in my opinion, gets taken down a lot because of how just cheesy and 90s it was. But I think at the time, that's also what I wanted. I mean, I was young when I watched it, and I just loved the action scenes. I thought it was very memorable. And it probably was because I was a kid where, I wasn't thinking about it on any kind of like deeper level. And there is no deeper level to this one. It's just a movie you just watch, you enjoy the action. And I think that's why some of these other movies on this list, these action for the sake of action movies, that's why I like this one better, because I probably saw it first, so this is the one that just resonated with me. Again, like I say, the first 4 movies in this franchise, they all take it in a very unique, different direction. So it's the Alien movies, it's the Killing Machine, but it's just done in different ways, so you're constantly coming back and seeing different things with it. Pretty gory in some parts, and not overly, like Requiem kind of gory, but there was some fun moments, some funny moments. It's just a stupid movie, but it's one that I enjoy watching. I like it because I can watch it and I don't have to worry about like thinking on deeper levels or anything like that. I mean, I know there's supposed to be some kind of like messages in there, and especially with the cloning and everything like that that goes into it. And, science is getting out of hand, and, be careful with what you do and all this stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, I thought it was kind of cool. And it brings, that superhuman Ripley out, which, I mean, I don't understand that. I don't get why, but I think it's fun to see her doing the things she's doing in that movie. I know as a polished movie, it's not too bad. I mean, it looks kind of good for the time. I like the cast. I think they work well together. I don't think they're an incredible, well-directed group of actors, but I think it works. I just think it works. This is my nostalgia taking over for sure. And honestly, it is tough for me to defend the movie to anybody else, because people just think, man, this movie's dumb. And it is. I'm not saying this is a good movie. I'm not saying this is a fun movie that you should watch with your family or anything. But I think for me, looking back on it, it gave me just such a, just a joy growing up. And I revisit it with fond memories. I'm taken back to a time when, I was first watching these and everything like that. I will say though, with the plot here, we are set in, a very different kind of universe than we live in now. So I see it both ways, where the original Alien was like, this is real people on a real job. That's very plausible, that just ran into a shitty situation. And with Alien Resurrection, I think it takes you out of that realism. Like, yeah, I don't think, it feels very realistic, even in a science fiction-y kind of setting. But also, what makes this any less plausible than any of the other movies? Like it's all science fiction, so it. I don't know. The people that detract from it saying, "Oh, it's just way too weird and ridiculous, and that can't happen." It's like, well, yeah, no kidding, but a lot of this can't happen, technically. So that just never bothered me. I can see why it would bother people, so I see both arguments of it here. But for me personally, it just doesn't bother me. It's just a movie where I can just unplug and have a good time. But yeah, we'll move on to number 4, and this is where we start getting into these are the god tier movies. These are the good ones. These are the ones I love, and I believe they are actually just good movies all around. So at number 4, we have Predator 2. And Predator 2, in my opinion, is a fantastic movie. I don't think it was particularly well received when it came out. I think when you go from Arnold to Danny Glover, people are kind of scratching their head. I think the settings and the fact that it didn't really further the plot of the first one kind of confused some people. I mean, there were some tie-ins and stuff, but I don't have a problem with any of that. I think it's essentially a Predator 1 and Predator 1B. I think it's just the same, basic principle, but in 2 different locations. And although Predator is a fantastic movie all the way through, I think it's awesome. I think it was so unique and interesting. When you get to Predator 2, since it was roughly the same kind of concept and idea, except the concrete jungle this time, I think it didn't do as well in people's minds at the time. But it's just so relatable, It's like I say, the concrete jungle. They bring the fight home. It feels very, it like strong. It has a strong feeling in that movie of, you have the heat wave, the gang violence, the everyday life. I mean, Danny Glover does a great job of portraying just an everyday guy doing what he has to do. He's overworked, he's tired, it's hot, it's just a mess. And, then you add this whole otherworldly wrinkle onto his everyday life too. Nobody's going to believe him. Nobody's going to understand. And it's just, it brings you along for a crazy ride. I think it's just so unique to the franchise as well. I think Alien vs. Predator Requiem kind of tried to do a callback on that where it's like, hey, we're taking the fight home now, It's not some otherworldly location or like a remote location. It's a town. And, Predator 2 was a city, but they did it very well. They did it perfectly. I love the acting in this. I think there are like bits of overacting from some of the tertiary characters, but I think it works well. Just enough humor where it doesn't seem ridiculous or like you can't take it seriously. And then also, it just kind of furthered the lore a little bit of the actual Predator itself. There's some fanfare things in there, some things I like to see. It was pretty gory, and I don't have a problem with that, but I'm sure that was some of the other detractors in there as well. I'm glad people are kind of coming around on this one, though, now, because I have always liked this movie. When I first saw it, I expected to hate it or not like it as much because a lot of people didn't like it at the time, and I liked it since day one, so I was kind of like, oh, God, am I weird? Do I have like a weird palate for movies? I feel like we all kind of feel that, that sense of not shame, but we don't feel like, oh, well, if we like these bad movies, it's going to kind of take away from us, or, people aren't going to take us as seriously or whatever. It's like, who cares? Like what you like, And at the time I was like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't like this as much as I do. But no, you know what? I don't care. I've always liked this movie. It's a great movie. And I'm glad people are coming around on it now too. I don't think it's as good as Predator, but I think if you're in the right mood, it's probably one of the ones you'd want to watch before Predator, maybe. For me personally, I think it's a very mood dependent movie, but I could always pop this in and have a good time. So, both ways, I think. Yeah, that's my number 4 though, man. Predator 2, I feel strong. I feel solid on it. 3, 2, and 1, I think are more fluid. I think I flip those around a little more depending on what mood I'm in. But yeah, we'll get into number 3, which is the original Predator. Now, this movie is just fantastic. It is so good, so ridiculous in parts, but the good kind of ridiculous, for the reasons I like Predator 2, it's kind of the opposite in Predator where, it's a location I'll probably never be in. It's a situation I'll probably never be in. It's not a big city. I grew up in cities, so, it takes me kind of out of that. But that's not a problem. It doesn't matter. Like, that's why I like Predator 2. Why I like Predator is because it's just a movie you can enjoy with an interesting, unique, original plot at the time. And, I just thought it was really action-packed, really cool. And I think Arnold does a fantastic job. I think out of all of the, earlier action movies he did, I think he does a very good job acting in this one. A few of his other roles are more monotone, more aggressive, more straightforward. This one, though, and these are his earlier roles, he got a lot better at, displaying more emotions and things like that throughout some of the other movies he did later on. But this one, I think, was one where he was really like doing his own thing. I felt like he seemed really comfortable and really good at acting out different kinds of emotions. I mean, there was confidence, there was a little bit of comedy, there was action, and then there was like figuring stuff out where I never really felt out of it with him. And I think just the whole way through, it's just such a iconic, quotable, memorable movie. Great cast, great group of people in here. And it was just done so beautifully. It holds up well today. It's like I say, the top three pretty much are interchangeable depending on how I feel. I mean, if I look at the box set of all these movies, I think, oh man, I'm feeling Predator today, or I'm feeling Alien today, or whatever, But they're just so top tier. And I think the top four are very, very incredible movies, but I think 3, 2, and 1 are really just in a league of their own. And like I said, very interchangeable. I don't think I could ever be upset at anybody else's ranking of these in general, but really these top three, I think if I had Predator number 1 in a couple of days or weeks or whatever, I wouldn't be too surprised. Like, it's just one of those movies where it just calls to you sometimes. But yeah, I like the location. I like that it doesn't feel over the top while still being over the top, if you know what I mean. Like, because it was just such a wild kind of movie to come out at the time. And I remember seeing this really young and being just terrified that this is a thing that could happen, like, oh my God, that's something like that's out there maybe, I don't know. And so it did a good job of like making you feel something, even if you obviously were a kid and didn't have the comprehension. But I don't know, I feel good about 3 right now. I watched them all the way through and I was just, I've seen it a bunch of times, but I was thrilled the whole way. A movie that you've seen and can still thrill you is a very good thing. I mean, that is just one of those special kind of like movies or songs or whatever that like kind of keeps pulling you back in. That's something awesome to hold on to. And I don't know. I think they did such a great job with this movie. I love it. Number 3 is awesome for Predator. We're going to get into number 2 now. And at number 2, we have Aliens. Now, Aliens and Alien are very interchangeable movies, and a lot of people rank them differently, even depending on their own list. Like, if you go year to year with people who have ranked these movies, sometimes they flip-flop them. It's just such a huge mood-dependent thing. It's where Predator and Predator 2 are the same kind of idea, something otherworldly is kind of stalking you in the shadows. It's just different locations. This is more of a continuation on Alien. Alien, you're kind of finding things out. You're like learning with the crew. You're going on this like psychological thrilling ride. And Aliens is a little bit more backstory to everything and then kind of following up. So it does what you want a sequel to do, but it also has a very different take on the whole thing. And okay, so I went into this movie. I knew it was Ripley again, and I knew there was a kid involved. And I thought, okay, kids in movies typically ruin sequels or whatever, Not always, but a lot of times it's just something extra emotional to carry on and you feel something and there's extra stakes in it. And there were extra stakes and you did feel something, but the Newt did not detract from the movie. She was not a distraction. She was not someone that was there to just tug at your heartstrings for the sake of it. It made a lot of sense. Like Ripley, if you watch this movie, it is a lot deeper than anybody even gives it credit for. Ripley was essentially like outlived her daughter and everything like that because of the cryo chamber and all that stuff. Deep space travel, whatever it is. And so she forms this kind of attachment to this girl that lost her parents in this horrible thing that happened on this, colony or whatever. And the company sends them along, and this whole world building that they're doing for Aliens, and Alien 3, it's so masterful. They did such a good job. Different directors, different casts, well, for the most part, and still keeping all that continuity and everything. I thought they did such a fantastic job. The only reason it sits at number 2 is because it is way more action oriented than the original Alien, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think it's definitely one of those heavily mood dependent kind of things. When I watched this movie again this last time, I enjoyed more of the backstory than I did just kind of the shooting and blowing stuff up and whatever, which I enjoyed, but it just depends on the mood you're in. And this time I was not in that big like an actiony kind of mood. But drawing parallels with like I say, the characters and how they've kind of evolved and developed through this whole thing. I think it is a very fun ride on different levels, and I think it's a deeper movie than, like I say, people give it credit for. But great directing. It's super intense. Ripley's a badass, and I think that's so cool, especially for the time, just to see her in there and not just be forced into that role to be forced into the role. Like, she was absolutely owning it. That's what I want to see more of. Like, the way Ripley portrays, the main character, the protagonist, the person that's going to save the day. It's not something that's so unbelievable or, she's not teaching us some kind of moral lesson along the way. We are just invested in this movie, and she does a kick-ass job, and I love her in it, and I love her character, and Ripley's just one of the all-time badass main characters in general. So I love what they did. I love how she portrayed Ripley and just furthered this franchise. And I think it stands the test of time. I believe a lot of the new age kind of movies where they try to fit new roles and create or recast old roles or things like that, and they want to do it in a more inclusive time. I think they can learn a lot from this movie, where you don't have to be inclusive for the sake of inclusivity. You can just make a movie and make characters that are believable and fun to watch and absolutely kick ass. Like, I had no problem looking up to Ripley when I was younger. Nobody did. I mean, how could you? She was the ultimate badass, you know what I mean? And, she didn't have these one-liners. She wasn't, like I say, teaching you a lesson through the whole thing. It wasn't like you just had a fun watching the movie, and I thought that was really cool. I have no problem with inclusivity. Like I said, with, a few of these movies, you just got to do it the right way. I don't want to cast people just to cast people. I want to cast people who are right for the movie and who are right for the script, and I want the script to make sense, So that's as much on the directors, writers, all of that, as it is anybody else. But, good on them. I really, really love this movie. I really love everything about it. But, like I say, just not super into action. However, if we go to our number 1, and not surprising at all, it's Alien. I think it was so masterfully shot, and there's a couple of things that really make it stand out. Again, Ripley, just absolute badass. She's kind of on the crew. She's just one of the crew members, and just somebody that is on par with everybody else until she breaks out and kicks ass and survives, which is really cool. And you stay along for that journey with her. But the other characters in this, so believable and work so well together. I like watching this movie because every character has their own unique personality that does not fade into the background. Yaphet Kotto is one of my favorite actors from that era, and he is so good in this movie. And, I mean, just everything. There's twists and turns. There's, moral dilemmas, like, do we leave this crew member? Do we try to save this crew member? Where do we cut the ties? And everybody, like this fight for survival of the fittest, or are we all in this together? It's just, there's so many different things playing. And then, you get the little backstory of the company sending them out there just to find what was, you know, essentially like an alien host. I don't know. I mean, there's just so much good to like take out of this movie, and I just think it's set up this world very well, which is why, again, going back to like Prometheus and Alien Covenant and all this, such a huge letdown that all of this stuff was so expertly crafted without even a thought before, of like, hey, this could be a franchise for the next 40 years or whatever. It was so expertly crafted here, and there was so many different things they could do from it. They did such a great job in the early few movies with it that it's just a shame that the other ones couldn't have done anything like that, and it just goes back to that, like, we're just casting people to cast people. We're just putting, directors into direct. We're just making money on this thing, but it sucks that it's like that now. And hopefully they come back to form at some point to reboot it or, give us what we want to see. But man, these are just absolute masterpieces up here at 1 and 2 for sure. I also like that it's such a believable crew. Like, if you took this same crew and the same crew dynamic and put them on like a barge in the middle of like, the ocean by Alaska or something, and they were like crab fishermen or something, like, I'd believe it. It just looks very real, except they're a crew in space on salvage missions or whatever. And that helps build the world. It helps immerse you in that realism. It helps make you feel for these characters. So, talk about a movie that makes you feel something. This one is very good at that. It's just something you can easily rewatch, which is saying a lot, because once you know the plot of the movie, it's kind of like, oh, well, you don't have to see what happened. You know what happens. You don't have to go through it again. But yeah, you really should. If you've seen this once, watch it again. Watch it another time. I love this movie. It is so good. At number 1 is Alien. And we'll just recap real quick. So 1 is Alien, 2 is Aliens, 3 we have Predator, 4 Predator 2, 5 Alien Resurrection. I'm sorry, everybody. 6 is Prey, 7 is Predators, 8 Alien 3, 9 Prometheus, 10 Alien vs. Predator, 11 Alien Covenant, and 12 Alien vs. Predator Requiem, 13 The Predator. And like I said, all of these do not have equal distribution from each other. 13 is way at the bottom. 12 is way, way down low as well. The next few, they're well above Requiem and the Predator. Then, Prometheus through maybe Alien Resurrection, you can make cases to move them all around in my mind. But I like them where they are now. And then everything 4 and above is just God tier, incredible movies. But yeah, please don't be afraid to tell me what you would rank these movies, what you liked, what you didn't like. It's all subjective. It's all for fun, no worries either way. Like I say, I just love looking at what other people, rank these or any movies or music or whatever. And just passion in general. I think it brings out the passion in all of us. But yeah, feel free to comment down below about that. Check out the Twitch streams or the YouTube, the other YouTube channel I do. And, all those links are down in the description. So if you do want to see any more or want to interact on a different level, like, definitely come by and we can talk about this stuff. I have no problem talking about anything on those streams. But yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure doing this. A lot of fun. And if you have any suggestions as well, throw them in the comments. And again, Boya, thank you so much for the suggestion. That was great. I will probably do some more of those suggestions as well. But yeah, you all have a fantastic day. Be well and take care of yourselves, y'all.